Hi there, we are in Paris and this is the Seine, a river that, similar to the Thames in London, has been a dump for rubbish for thousands of years. Well, the city is quite the same age. It was founded 400 BC by a Celt tribe called the Parisian that established themselves there, where you see Notre Dame over there. That's l'Île de la Cité, and that was the core. It was the equivalent of Londinum in London just 400 years before. The Romans arrived around 50 BC, so 100 years before they arrived in London. And since then, items have been thrown into the Seine. Now, it's not possible to mudlark it because the tide doesn't go up and down. However, the Seine has been dredged over the years. And tonight, we're gonna see an exhibition called DANS LA SEINE, which is in the Île de la Cité, in the crypt Archaeology, just in front of Notre Dame, where over 150 artifacts that tells the story of Paris are preserved and exhibited for a very short time. Let's go. Here we are crossing the Seine. That's l'Île Saint-Louis, and this is l'Île de la Cité, with Notre Dame just there in the background. Street artists. And Notre Dame has just opened again after a few years have been closed. Here we're going to the crypt, which is just over there in the main square in front of Notre Dame, which is just reopened yesterday. And as you can see, it's full of tourists. And I think Parisian are really happy to see it open again. But let's go to the exhibition. Here we are at the crypt Archaeology, and this is the entrance of the exhibition. So we just entered the crypt, and as you can see, the crypt is located here, just in front of Notre Dame, and it was dug in the 1960s, where some works were done to restructure the square in front of Notre Dame, and Roman and medieval buildings were discovered. So instead of taking them away and putting them in a museum, the city of Paris decided to build this crypt. Here we are inside the crypt, and these are some of the buildings that have been discovered during the excavations in the 1950s. These particularly are the Roman baths. These have been active until the 4th century after Christ, and what you can see here are the different areas of the Roman baths, especially over there. If you can manage to see those tiles, that is part of the heating system, and all these type of tiles is exactly what we also find in Londinum, in the Roman London, when we find the Roman artifacts. It's incredible that 2000 years ago the Romans had managed to create a system of hot chambers that could create steam, could create bathhouses, which are really similar to what we use today. And here they are in front of Notre Dame. And within the Roman settlement, other civilizations found their own homes and their own space. This, for example, is a medieval cella that has been excavated just within the Roman baths. So we're talking about 1,500 years apart, and yet the city is still alive and is still bustling, and pre-existing buildings are reutilized just like we do today. Again, a bit like London, the Seine looked completely different before being inhabited by the Romans. And in fact, while today we see it's a quite high stream flow within the Seine, at the time, just before Lutetia, just before the Roman established their settlements, it looked a much broader river than it is today. Here you see in dark blue today's river, and this is the ancient riverbed of the Seine. It's much larger with several little islands. Montmartre, as you see, it was just the first small hill nearby, but it was a much more braided river with small inlets all around, and probably the Romans picked this area because it was easily accessible to sources of fresh water, because it was well isolated from potential animals being around, and yet being so broad and braided, for sure the current wasn't strong, so they could easily navigate through it and access it and swim without being in danger. And that's a little reconstruction that has been made of what the Roman Paris should have looked like. You know, the first buildings, the first settlements, and a quiet river. So after visiting the exhibition, I'm so honored to be here with Valérie Kozlowski, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, which is the curator of the exhibition. And as an amateur, I was just so mesmerized by this that I wanted to ask her a few questions about how this exhibition started. So yeah, first of all, where I'm sure many artifacts have been found in the Seine and nearby for centuries. So why an exhibition now? What triggered it? What was the inspiration?
Cette exposition, elle a été faite dans le cadre de la réouverture de la crypte, aussi pour les Jeux Olympiques, parce qu'il y a un fort impact pour les Parisiens à retrouver la Seine et à retrouver l'histoire de la Seine qui a été un peu oubliée. Paradoxalement, comparé à Londres, les Parisiens ont tourné le dos à la Seine et à leur fleuve. Et là, c'est une façon de reprendre contact avec le fleuve et de reprendre contact avec l'histoire de ce fleuve qui est une voie de communication formidable depuis l'Antiquité.
Fantastic. Is there any object that you couldn't include that is though very special and yet is not here, that is one of your favorites?
J'aime beaucoup les plombs forgés. C'est des petits objets en métal qui sont dans une vitrine et qui sont des témoignages en fait de la vie religieuse et de la vie des processions qui existaient autour de Notre-Dame et de la Seine et qu'on a retrouvé depuis le 19e siècle dans le lit de la Seine. Ce sont des objets incroyables et qui témoignent des confréries, qui témoignent des pèlerinages, qui témoignent de toute la vie médiévale et c'est assez émouvant.
And I was really impressed that some items are very similar to what we find. Some others in London, like pilgrim badges that you just described, and some tokens that we call them London and Paris series. That these little tokens that you have there. But then other things I have not really seen in abundance, like the ex votos in the Roman side. So can you tell us a bit more, what they are and why there are so many?
Alors, en fait, la Seine porte un nom. Alors, sous l'Antiquité, c'est la déesse Secana. Et les Gallo-Romains, honorent cette déesse Secana en donnant des ex-voto pour la guérison, pour remercier, pour demander des faveurs à la déesse. Et c'est pour ça qu'on en trouve beaucoup aux sources de la Seine, qui ne se trouvent pas à Paris, évidemment, mais qui se trouvent en Bourgogne, mais qui appartiennent en fait à la ville de Paris, ces sources de la Seine. Et c'est la raison pour laquelle on a voulu les mettre en valeur.
Wow, so they would create these objects and then throw them in the river as a wish for healing or for something to happen.
Oui, on imagine qu'il y avait une volonté de faire en sorte que de la magie, en fait, que ces objets magiques et rituels soient utilisés pour s'attirer les faveurs de ces canards.
Fantastic. The mud of the river Thames is anoxic, so there is no oxygen. So as a mudlark, one of my favorite objects is leather, which is so fragile, and yet it can preserve in those conditions. I had no idea that the banks of the Seine were similar, but then I went to the part of the exhibition where there are fish traps, and they are beautifully preserved. Can you tell us a bit more about those objects, and is it common for organic matter to preserve?
Non, c'est vraiment très rare de retrouver des objets en matière organique. Là, c'est une chance inouïe de l'avoir retrouvé, c'est parce que c'était contenu dans des tourbes. Et la tourbe acidifie en fait les matières organiques, et c'est la raison pour laquelle nous l'avons retrouvé. Et en France, on a un laboratoire qui utilise l'énergie nucléaire, qui s'appelle Archaeology, qui a un procédé pour contribuer à préserver ces objets. Donc tous les objets sont envoyés chez eux et eux ils stabilisent et ils préservent ces objets qui sont très très rares.
That is fantastic. I've never seen an example preserved three-dimensionally and in incredible conditions. So, a last question. I know you're very busy with Notre Dame above us reopening and so on. I went out very inspired and very humbled by how history is told by and is made by normal people. We learn in books about kings and queens, but then you find a coin or a shoe, or
Yeah.
and that's what made the history of the city we see. You as a curator, what were you hoping, and what are you hoping the visitors come out with? You know, what was your intent in putting this together? What do you hope that someone leaving the exhibition says?
Qu'ils comprennent que l'histoire, c'est pas évidemment que les rois et les reines. En France, c'est une longue histoire, mais aussi, en fait, ce qui fait l'archéologie et l'histoire, c'est tous ces petits objets du quotidien que les Parisiens, depuis des siècles, utilisent. Et la somme de tous ces petits objets, ça donne une image de qu'est-ce que c'était la vie quotidienne des gens. Et la vie quotidienne des gens, elle est comme maintenant un peu éloignée du pouvoir et un peu éloignée de ce qui peut se passer. Et en fait, ce que j'ai envie, c'est que les gens ils repartent en se disant mais c'est incroyable, tous ces gens vivaient un peu comme nous et vivaient avec des petites choses, avec des peignes, avec des, et faire le lien entre ces gens du passé, les Parisiens du passé et les Parisiens actuels. Et ça passe par ces petits objets vraiment incroyable parce que c'est la vie quotidienne. Et alors on a la grande histoire, on a Notre-Dame, les rois, les reines, les empereurs, et puis ici on a la petite histoire, mais la petite histoire qui est aussi importante que les autres.
Absolutely, and for us, you know, we're not kings or queens, but the idea that we can be remembered in time by one object that we just create in our daily jobs, for me is very humble, and this exhibition is it really allowed me to perceive this. So I would really like to thank you for putting it together, to you and your team. And the last question is, I love this, and now I would like to see more. Is there a plan to maybe in the future do more of these, or is there anything, or is just a wish? What do you think?
On a un projet de rénovation ici de tout cet espace où on espère en fait faire parler les habitants de l'île de la Cité depuis les Gallo-Romains jusqu'aux orphelins de l'hospice des enfants trouvés. Donc on va essayer de proposer plus ça aux gens et aux visiteurs dans le futur.
Fantastic. So we are in this exhibition is in the crypt just in front of Notre Dame, which is a fantastic site. Even without the objects. The objects are incredible, but already all these buildings remains here. Can you tell us just a little bit about what they are?
On est sur l'île de la Cité et ici devant vous, c'est les thermes privés de l'évêque au 4e et 5e siècle. Et c'est un ensemble tout à fait particulier parce que on a vraiment des petits bains privés qui permettaient de prendre soin de son corps. Enfin voilà, les traditions antiques qui perdurent jusqu'au 4e et 5e siècle. On a un bout de rempart aussi de l'enceinte de Philippe Auguste qui se trouve là-bas. C'est une des premières enceintes de Paris. Et ici, on a des caves médiévales qui ont été construites au moment où on transforme complètement l'île de la Cité pour pour construire Notre-Dame. Et on construit une nouvelle rue qui s'appelle la rue Neuve Notre-Dame. Et ici, c'est des témoignages de toutes ces maisons.
Thank you so much for your time. This was incredible. I've learned even more from the conversation with you, and I'm looking forward to seeing more followers and friends that are passionate about history to come and see this exhibition just in front of Notre Dame, which is an iconic building. Just look for the crypt archaeologique and the exhibition with artifacts from the Seine in Paris and along its river banks here and outside of Paris is an exhibition. Thank you so much for your time, and I am going again for another round.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.